Today we want to welcome back everybody back, or if you're just joining us for this attendance session, we are glad to have you. We are going to start off, I think, with Josh. Is that correct, Josh?
That is
Are you
correct.
taking the first round? All right. So we've got a few of our Office of Finance and Operations staff here today to help. We got Josh and Laura and Brad. So Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Again, like Dee Dee said, my name is Josh Whitlow. I'm with the Office of Finance and Operation and with the Division of District Support. Along with me, I have Brad Kennedy, who will be going over some growth factor and SAR information, and Laura Lohman, who will be going over some FRAM. So on attendance side of it, it's been a while since we've had that we're going to be funding on attendance. So we just want to do some updates and requirements to just refresh everyone's memory. Tracking attendance is required by KRS 161.200. Daily attendance must be taken. This will fall primarily on your classroom on your classroom teachers and your attendance clerks. Elementary schools will still take attendance at the beginning of the school day, and your middle school and high school will take period attendance. Check-in, check-outs will be maintained by the attendance clerk in the front office. No-shows. A no-show enrollment occurs when a student has completed the prior year with a CO1 in status and is not present for the first day of attendance for the current school year. We ask that you do not delete an enrollment for a student who is a no-show. The district would change the EO1 to a NS no-show and enter the student's first day of the enrollment. The only time it is appropriate to delete an enrollment is when a student enrolls in a different school but in the same district. Then you would delete the enrollment and start a new enrollment at the new school in the same district. No-show guidance can be found on the cases data standard page for more information on that. Check in and check out with withdrawal codes. Maintain the sign in, sign out log that you entered into IC. Make sure that you have that stored away in a filing cabinet because we'll be using those for attendance audits. Withdrawal codes are used to indicate when a student's enrollment in a school has ended, and we have many withdrawal codes, and they are all listed in our pupil attendance manual or the enrollment data standard. Transportation codes. Again, this is just a couple reminders on that since last year we were not paying on attendant or transportation codes. So state SEEK funding provides an annual additional allocation for pupil transportation that will be allocated on how often a student rides the bus. T codes must be entered for all new enrollments and checked for returning students. And then T codes can change throughout the year, so make sure you're keeping up with all that. And we do recommend that T codes should be checked at least twice a year. Of course, beginning of school year, and then when districts ask me, I always say, at least the second or third week when you're starting your second semester. Child of a district employee. The law simply allows districts to receive SEEK funding for a child of district employee who may live in another Kentucky school district. The flag has been created in IC, so you will just enter the start date of the first date of the student enrollment. Non-resident pupil with parent employed in the district is not included on the count of non-resident agreements. Attendance clerk trainings. I know I have spoke with a lot of districts across the state this year, within last year and this year, wanting to know what kind of trainings that they can provide their clerks, their SIS point of contacts. So KDE and IC offer many training opportunities and documentation. I know Anna went over campus community and campus passport. Lisa Roten, which she will provide regional IC user groups. And then, of course, we have our annual IC interchange. And then we have our Kentucky DPP conference. full and half-day kindergarten. This is required reporting on the number of students in a full day and half day. Each school must have a kindergarten code selected, and that can be found under System Admin, Calendar, and Grade Levels tab. If a school offers both attendance groups must be set up, and that guidance can be found under the attendance data standard under KCS data standards webpage. And just a reminder, if you report to KDE that district is providing full day kindergarten this year, please make sure that these fields are updated and correct. KSD and KSB. Districts sending students to KSD and KSB can choose to track these students in their database with a secondary enrollment. Reminder, these students will not have a schedule or attendance in your district's database. Transportation funding can be claimed through the transportation reimbursement for daily trips and residential students. And the home resident district must be included in all ARC meetings. State map attendance codes. Reminder, attendance codes mapping should follow the guidance under the System Admin Data Standard and the Pupil Attendance Manual. And a reminder, no code should be mapped to status tardy, because that will mess with your funding and we don't want that to happen. Districts should not create any exempt codes in addition to the codes listed in the documentation with excused exempt. QCE and QCP attendance groups. For the 21-22 school year, we will still use the QCE and QCP attendance groups. QCP continue to use for students who are quarantined after a positive COVID diagnosis. These students will also be enrolled into your home hospital attendance group and receive virtual home hospital services while in quarantine. QCE, the Department of Public Health, recommends following the CDC guidelines and quarantine exposed students. QCE should still be used for the 21-22 school year. All QCE quarantine students will be absent and will be excused absence. So this is where we're going to ask for you to look over your board policies, and they may need to be updated to account for excused absence due to quarantine. Excused absence due to quarantine will not generate any AADA, and that's similar to all absent codes that we have now. Students in a QCE attendance group will generate a portion of the state funding for days in quarantine. KDE is now working on exactly how much funding that's going to be, but we will provide that information as soon as we have that ready and send out to all DPPs and KCS point of contacts. I am going to pause on the QCE and QCP just for a few minutes. This is the QCE is new information that we are providing to all districts, and I'm going to ask our Assistant Director, Jesse Carlton, to cover anything that I may have left out on the QCE and QCP.
Hey guys, Josh, you did a really good job. Just wanted to jump on and say that a lot of DPPs and other people have reached out to us asking about these QCE and QCP codes. Kind of want to give you a little background of what we're thinking here. QCP, keeping those positive students in that QCP code and putting them in home hospital will get you the home hospital funding. But as we were looking at this, we're trying to figure out some way. We don't know exactly how big this is going to get this year, right? So if people start quarantining a whole lot of kids who are just quarantined because they were exposed and not sick, that could, we can't put all of those kids in home hospital because as everybody knows, that home hospital group generates a little bit of extra funding, right? So you get your AADA in home hospital, plus you get a little bit of extra funding. So if we were to put all of these kids in there, it has the potential to kind of, for lack of a better term, blow our budget, right? With all of these kids in there. So what we're doing is we're saying these exposed students, put them in QCE, give them an absence, an excused absence. Like Josh said, you may have to address this in board policy so that those absences don't count towards your parent notes and all of that. But then as long as they're in this QCE attendance group, what our plan is to pull that data at the end of the year, work with you guys kind of like we do at Seek at Risk to say, hey, we see that you had this many kids quarantined for this many days. You know, verify that with you all, make sure everybody agrees with the number. And then we're hoping to be able, not hoping, but we will figure out a mechanism to pay you as a SEEK add-on for those students. We're looking at exactly that, you know, that amount that we will pay right now. All of that will have to go through our board. We're hoping to take it in August. And we're trying to figure out how to do this, you know, correctly through the statutes and regs to make sure that we can give you that funding as an add-on. But we know you're getting ready to start school, you need to know where to put these kids, and that's where to put these kids right now. So back to you, Josh.
All right. That is all on my section. So I don't know if you want to ask questions now or you want to go ahead and go to Brad Kennedy for growth factor and SAR.
Let's see what kind of questions we have. I think I got just a couple of questions. So if you think we don't have time, we can do it, or we can hold to the end.
We can hold to the end.
Okay, let's hold to the end to make sure we get through everybody. Thank you.
Sounds great. Brad?
Hello, everybody. This is Brad Kennedy with the Division of District Support. And as you can see there in front of you, we are taking attendance again. So we've got some updates for growth factor and a brief introduction to the new SAR application that I think you're really going to like. So first, just a couple of reminders. Growth factor, SAR, and January growth factor, if you choose to do so, will be submitted in the 21-22 school year, which is a change from the last 18 months or so. Growth factor is due after, and here's the actual language from the KRS code, but essentially it's due after your second month of school and no later than November 1st. So after you've had those 2 full school months, you can go ahead and submit. And there will be an in-depth training on growth factor and the new SAR application at the KDPP conference September 15th through 17th. So this will be sort of a broad overview this morning. So just as a reminder, growth factor is a subset of SAR. So it's a lot of the same data, just organized slightly differently, titled slightly differently. So growth factor record 1 is the same thing as SAR record 2. Growth factor record 2 is the same as SAR 5. Growth factor 4 is the same as SAR 9. And growth factor record H is the same as SAR record H. And of course, all of this information will be available for you in the new SAR training documentation that will be available well before you need it. It is just getting the final touches put on it now. Much like you did over the last 2 years without having submitted SAR growth factor, the data cleanup is still the same. You've got a long list of reports to verify. And essentially what I try to remind folks is you want Infinite Campus to reflect what's actually happening in the school. So you use these reports to ensure that your data is an accurate reflection of what's happening in the school. And I would just use this as a checklist. You know, after you've done these things, check them off, and that should indicate that your data is clean and ready to present, or ready to submit, excuse me. So after you've done your data cleanup, you'll go through Infinite Campus. I have mentioned that there's a new application that you'll be using to submit the file, but the Infinite Campus portion doesn't change for growth factor or SAR. So you'll still use Infinite Campus just like you had, running the state fixed width format. And I've got all this circled over there in the screenshot. You leave the date range blank. You'll select all types of the records, and you'll generate the report and save that report wherever you like in your downloads, or save it to your desktop. Well, whatever works for you. Doesn't really make a difference on our end, just so long as you know where to go and get it. After you've created the report, then you will actually access our new SAR application. So you used to go to a website that would change slightly depending on what cycle you were in. Now the new application will be a one-stop shop for all of your attendance reporting, whether it's growth factor, January growth factor, or SAR. So I want to take just a minute and point out some things that you'll see right there when you first access the new SAR application. So it'll be a link, and you'll log in just like you would with your email using your same Microsoft login. And a couple things that you'll see on the Home tab. So in the top right corner, you've got your basic information, what district you're representing. In this example, it's Anderson County. It'll have your login and your school district. Going all the way to the bottom right-hand corner, you've got some KDE information, how to contact us. And then underneath the top green banner across the screen, you've got three tabs that will help you navigate your home screen, which is what you see now, some district information, which we'll get into a little bit later, and a report manager, which we'll show you here in just a second too. So across the screen, you can see all three cycles there. The one highlighted in green is the one that is active at that moment. So in this example, you've got growth factor for the school year 16-17 open. You can see January growth factor and SAR there off to the right. If it was the time for one of those reports or one of those cycles, those would be highlighted in green, and those are the ones that you could actually use. So looking at specifically the green highlighted growth factor box, on the left side of that box, you can see several things. The first being the status. And in this example, you've got pending issues. You could also see things like not submitted, which is pretty straightforward, just means the district has not submitted it yet. Could say waiting KDE review. That means that you have submitted and now it's sitting in my inbox and I need to go review that. And then after I've done my portion, the status would then change to waiting district review, which would mean it's already been reviewed by KDE, there's no errors, and now we are awaiting a verification from the superintendent. So in years past, a lot of this was done via email. Now you'll be able to log into this. The DPP, the finance officer, and the superintendent will all have access to these. And we can also grant access to anyone else who you tell us needs access. If you have an assistant who works with these reports, we can create a username for them. If it's a district that has multiple DPPs, we can make sure that the person who does this report has access. And then just working down that growth factor box, next action, pretty straightforward. That's what happens next. If it's waiting on me, it'll say waiting on KDE to resolve. And then you can also see we've got the school year, the date that it was submitted, if it has been submitted, if there's any active issues, or if there are any resolved issues. And I know this is a new application, so it could be a little intimidating at first. And I don't just say this because I know the team that built it. This application is very simple, very intuitive. We've piloted this application with 5 school districts, and it got really, really great reviews. It's simple and it houses everything you need all in one place so that you don't have to go searching through emails that I sent you a year ago. You'll have access to everything that you need right there in front of you. Submitting the file doesn't change all that much. You'll still create the file through Infinite Campus, like I showed you a couple slides ago. You will still format the file the same way with the cycle name, the year, the district number, and then you will submit through the new SAR application. You'll be able to submit for whatever cycle is currently open. So submitting the file, if there's no errors present, it will submit without any additional steps, and the district user will see the screenshot that you see below. From this screen, the district user finance officer will then be able to also view the submission, and the superintendent, when he or she was to log in, would be able to then verify. And it's just a button click, similar to the old system where the DPP would go to the superintendent and say, hey, I've done my portion. Now Brad is just waiting on you to send an email verifying. Now, still the same thing. You go to the superintendent and say, hey, I've done my portion. Now I just need you to log in, click this verify button, and we can complete the process. Looking at submitting the file here again, the SAR application will show if there are any errors, just like in the old system. In the old system, if there were warnings, you would just include a note explaining to me what that warning was about. Like, let's say maybe you have 8th graders who take classes over at the high school. The high school won't have their attendance because it's kept over at the middle school. You would include those in the notes. Now, when you hit complete submission, it will prompt you to explain it. So you can't submit without explaining why you have that warning, which just saves us from me sending you an email and say, hey, what's going on? Why do we have this? It will already have been done for us. And I'll try to go fast because I know Laura's got a couple slides after I do. After you've submitted a file, you'll see a screen like this. There's a great depth of information here that you can click through. And again, all those who need access to this will have access to it well before the training at the DPP conference in September. So you'll be able to click through a lot of this on your own. And while I'm presenting in September, you'll be able to click through as I'm talking. I will note on this screen, like you see, no data was reported here. Well, that's because, as you can see, we're in a growth factor cycle and we have the calendar tab highlighted, and their calendar is not a record that is submitted for growth factor. So it's not that you've done anything wrong, there's just no data to show because that data is not reported for the growth factor cycle. One of the great new features is the report manager. In the old system, you would have these reports saved here, there, or everywhere. You know, if one DPP leaves, then the next DPP doesn't know where the reports were from years past. The new application will house everything right here, and you can toggle through whatever cycle you need, whatever school year you need. All of that information is right here in the reports manager that you can scroll through and access years past really at the touch of a finger. And this is just district information. This is, very basic information on where your school is located, who the correct people are. Again, this will be explained further at a later date. I'll pass it to you, Laura.
Thank you. So I'm Laura Loma with the Division of District Support, and I'm going to be just giving an update on FRAM and processing household income forms. So just like last year, we'll be using the 2018-19 household income form data for funding purposes. Please continue to stress the importance of getting these forms back for other reporting purposes. The HIFs will still need to be processed through the FRAM module in campus, and you'll need to continue to upload the DC import, and that needs to be done monthly. If your district is full CEP, household income forms can be processed electronically through the FRAM processing in campus, and this does require a campus support ticket to be set up for them to be able to set this up for your district. If you're a partial CEP district, you won't be able to use FRAM processing tool, but there are several options that you can use to obtain your signature electronically on the HIF and process those forms as you would normally. So your first option would be to create an OLR form that mimics the HIF with an electronic signature. And then your next option is to create a custom form in campus that can go out through the parent portal that they'll just sign electronically. And then lastly, you could create an OLR page and link to where parents can just upload the form themselves. For the 2021-22 school year, non-CEP schools will not be required to complete USDA forms to feed students. But just like HIFs, these forms still need to be collected and entered into campus for other student benefits, data pools, and funding purposes. This is the link to the CEP page where you can find additional resources regarding FRAM and household income forms. There is a Spanish version of the form now on this website. And this is the KDE support staff contact information for everyone in our office.